In this video, I'm going to review the concepts of variables and levels of measurement, and then we're actually going to take a look at some examples in SPSS. So there are different types of variables. I prefer to use the term categorical and continuous. Categorical variables are those that occur at the nominal level, and continuous variables are those that occur at an interval or ratio level. And that's my vocabulary. You'll notice that your textbook uses the term quantitative variable instead of continuous variable. When we think about categorical variables or nominal level variables, those are going to be essentially variables that place people into categories. And these categories are essentially named categories. So examples of categorical variables might be gender or race, ethnicity. Those are two pretty common categorical variables. All right. There is no order associated with this. A special type of categorical variable is called a dichotomous categorical variable. And that's a categorical variable, particularly when naturally occurring, only has two outcomes. So a yes-no is a special type of dichotomous variable. For example, will a student pass this class? There are two outcomes, yes or no. When we think about levels of measurement, so we've talked about nominal as a level of measurement, and that is a categorical level. Moving on to ordinal. Ordinal level of measurement, or ordinal variables, are those that have a rank order. However, the units associated with the rank order are probably unequal. So the ordinal level will give us the understanding of higher or lower, but doesn't really tell us how much higher or how much lower. And there's no true 0 point here. So the intervals between the ranks are not necessarily equal. When we think about ordinal levels, we might think about, ranking of reading groups in a school. That might be ordinal level. Some reading groups are higher than others, but there's not necessarily a quantitative difference between the groups, particularly one that is equal. If we look at interval level variables are rank order, and the interval units are equal in between, but there is no 0 point. And so for an interval, typically examples for this include achievement scores, attitude scores, test scores. The values represent equal intervals, but there's actually no true 0 point available. And ratio are variables in which they have all the other characteristics I've talked about, but they also have a true 0 point. And so ratio variables are things like weight, distance, the total number of items you got correct on a test. Time is also occasionally a ratio variable. So the type of variable that we have is really important because this dictates what type of statistical tests you can do. Alright, so I have my SPSS brought up, and I would actually like you guys to take a look at some of the variables and tell me what their level is. And I think this is good practice. So when we're looking at these variables, let's go down to question 46. So, all right, actually, the question 46, I mean this over here. For question 46, the label of this question is, what languages are spoken in your home? And we're going to go over to the values, And I can see that this value offers me the options of English only, other than English, and English and other languages. So there are 3 options here. I'd like you to pause briefly and write down what you think this is. Is this nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio? And then restart the video once you have your answer. Okay, so this is a nominal level variable. It is a categorical variable. There are 3 categories here: English only, language other than English, and English and other languages. There is no order to this. There is no rank. There is no 0 point. So this is a categorical variable. It is at the nominal level. Let's try another example. Let's look at question 49. So this question is, what is your best estimate of your family's yearly income? And we can see when we look at how this is measured that we run from below 10,000, and we run essentially in increments of $10,000 from 1 through, we're going to top off at $500,000, okay? And so what I want to point out is that it starts in original $10,000 increments, but then later on, after we hit $100,000, it jumps to $25,000 increments. So again, pause the video and consider, is this nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio? And tell me why. The way this particular variable is coded makes it an ordinal variable. So, although income, if this question was asked differently, could in theory be continuous, right? It could in theory be a interval level, or sorry, ratio level variable. It could also be an interval level variable, actually. The way it's coded here is a ordinal level variable, because we can see that it has a rank, and it is going from small to large. However, it does not meet the standards or qualifications for interval level because the values represented are not equal. So we jump from $10,000 increments to $25,000 increments. So this right in here is actually where what makes this particular variable ordinal rather than interval. Keeping in mind that if this question was asked differently, it could most definitely be an interval or a ratio level variable. All right, let's pick another variable. So we're going to look at some scales, and I'm going to do, I feel valued by faculty in the classroom environment. And the options here are strongly agree, agree, disagree, strongly disagree, don't know, not asked. And we're going to ignore the not asked for this portion. So again, please pause the video. Let me know if this is nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. And you might want to go back to your notes from class and take a look at Likert scales before you answer this question. And then come back. All right, so this is a Likert scale. And we know that Likert scales can either be ordinal or are technically ordinal. However, sometimes when Likert scales are symmetric and equidistant, then we treat them as interval. In this particular case, I would like you to consider whether you think that these options are symmetric and equidistant. So if we were just to look at number 1 through 4, strongly agree, agree, disagree, and strongly disagree, we see that's a 4-point Likert scale, and it is fairly symmetric and equidistant, although there's only 4 points on this scale, and I would say a lot of people might say, you know, like a 5 or a 7-point scale would give you a little bit more strength towards arguing that it should be treated as interval because there's just more points there. Also, the option of number 5, don't know, really takes away from the symmetric component. And so, as currently written, I would argue that this is definitely an ordinal level measurement. If we got rid of the don't know, and if we had maybe like, 7 points on the scale, so very strongly agree, agree, disagree, strongly disagree, very strongly disagree, then we might be able to argue that it is an interval. But for the purposes of today, I think we're going to treat this as an ordinal scale because that's the way the variable is right now. All right, let's do one more option here. So I want to scroll to the bottom, and actually we'll do two more options. First, student has an IEP plan in K-12 education because I'm interested in disability, and this is an important part of disability. And so we'll take a quick look, and we've got 2 options here. 1 is no, and 2 is yes. So what type of variable is this? Go ahead and pause, and then come back. So this, again, is a dichotomous nominal or categorical variable. So it's a dichotomous. There are only 2 options here. And it is a categorical level, and it's nominal because essentially we just have 2 categories. Okay? Let's do one more. So I've got a student's SAT score here, and I've got a student's ed test score here. And with these, I have no labels associated with them. You'll notice that that's blank. And that's because I left this for you guys to do. So it's a great point for us to transition into how to do descriptive statistics. So what I would like for you to do is to run some descriptive statistics on both ed test and IEP plan. So ed test, we're going to go analyze, descriptive statistics, descriptives. All right? And then I'm going to bring the ed test variable over. So I'll highlight it, I'll bring it over, and then I am going to go under options, and I would like the standard deviation of this, the mean, and I would like the range. So I want to see, what's the minimum, what's the maximum, what's the range associated with this. And then I would also like to see if this variable is skewed. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. So you just check the distributions. And then I'm going to hit continue. And then this brings us to the next part of good practice. So a lot of people would just hit OK here, and they'd go ahead and just run it. And that's not actually what I would like you guys to do. I would like you to keep a syntax. A syntax is essentially the computer code for everything you're doing in SPSS. So I'm going to have you hit paste. And that is going to open up a syntax editor. And this is what I would like you to turn in along with your work. So I want to see both your syntax and your output. And this is incredibly important for folks who are doing their dissertation so that you can keep track of what you've previously done. All right, so I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to hit run, which is just the green go button. And then the output will pop up. So we can see that for this particular variable, that I've got 37,693 people. Let's see, my minimum is a score of a 30, my max is a score of a 71, my mean is right at 50, my standard deviation is about 5, which is quite nice. So that's pretty good. I'm also going to just take a quick look and see what does this actually look like. And so I'm going to do descriptive statistics again, and then let me take, and I'm going to show you why this doesn't work well with so many, let's get rid of a previous variable I was playing with so many people in here. So I'm going to bring this over and do student ed test. And then I'm going to, again, ask for mean, median, mode. This is typically what you would do if you have a categorical variable. We don't. This happens to be a continuous variable. I'm going to go to charts, and I'm going to click histograms. Make sure that's on. And I'm going to hit continue, and then I'm going to hit paste. Typically, I would probably not do this, but I'd like for you guys to see what happens when you have a lot of people in and you run frequencies. So let me hit run. And this is going to take a couple minutes. And you can see my computer's thinking about it. So I'm just going to pause here and come back to the video when it has processed. Alright, so I have processed, and one of the things I wanted to point out before going to that frequency is to look at the skewness here. These two tests right in here, skewness values are going to provide an indication of the symmetry of the distribution, and kurtosis values are going to provide information about the peakedness of the distribution. So essentially, this is letting us, it's a metric to let us know if this distribution is normal or not. Now, one of the things to take into consideration is that the sample size I have is very large. And so these tests are sensitive to large samples. And so what I would want to do is actually look at the histogram. And so that's also why I ran it. Now over here there's a cheat sheet. And this is the log. And so I'm going to scroll down and show you what the frequency distribution would look like. And here's our statistics again. So my mean, my median, and my mode. All right. So the mean is going to be the average, and that's most commonly what people would report. So this is essentially the frequencies of every single test score. And so each of these ed test scores, there's only a frequency of 1. And so I have about, I don't know, 37,000 of these in this little table, which is why it took quite a while to run. And which is why I normally might not do that. The cheat sheet is just to go over here. And so the statistics part is what I'm interested in. And then the histogram is what I'm also interested in. And we can see that this is actually quite a nice normal distribution of my students' test scores. And if we're thinking about this, it looks like essentially within a 10 points out is that first deviation. And so I've got a standard deviation of about 5, which is again kind of nice, and this tells you the n, or how many people are included in this. All right, and this along the side gives you the frequency or the number of people. Okay, so this is how you would run a histogram. And so essentially, going back to the original question we had, student ed test score, is that nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio? Well, it appears that this data, and then again pause, you guys write down your answer, and then we'll come back. It appears that this data is actually very nice ratio level data, because there's a 0 point, and the scores actually mean something. And in addition, it's giving us a great shape of a normal distribution. Okay, so this is going to be a nice continuous variable for us in the data set. All right, I would like you to do a distribution on your own for student had IEP. And so for this, please look at the frequency and pause the tape, and then come back and tell me how many students have an IEP plan and how many don't. Okay? So if we're going to do this, analyze, descriptive statistics, frequencies, I'm going to send student ed test score back because we're done with that. And I'm going to pull over student had an IEP plan. I will do statistics, check mean, median, mode. Okay, hit continue. If I want a chart of this, I'll check to make sure histogram's on, hit continue, push paste. We will wait for that to pop up in the syntax, and we're going to go ahead and hit run. And then what you'll see here is that 61% of the students in this sample did not have an IEP plan, and 25% did. And if I was to scroll down a little bit, that is what the histogram looks like. Now, this should not be a normal distribution because we only have two categories. And so this is a dichotomous variable. All right, it is a categorical dichotomous variable. So I would like you to do a couple more of these on your own. So please go through and take a look at student SAT score. And then I would also like you to address first generation status. And then we're going to go up here and I would like you to select any of the question 78A variables. So any of the questions about with a Likert scale that goes from 1 to 4 and an I don't know. Okay? And please make sure that you are able to see a distribution for that and to get to know those variables a little bit better. Thanks so much for watching.